What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, checking out the Olife Obag EDCS. I believe the S in that stands for small because there's an EDCM that's slightly larger, although there's no large yet, so I could be wrong there. But relatively budget-friendly pouch at $19.95. It's a little bit large to be pocketable, but still, I think, in that kind of small category. If you're not familiar with Olife, it's an offshoot of O-Knife or O-Lite. I guess O-Lite's probably the more known one, but if it doesn't fall in those two categories, they use the Olife branding, and so this is the Olife Obag. And the material on here is 500D Cordura for the most part, with the exception of this front panel, which is 1050D nylon, and then there's some nylon, black nylon on the interior of it. The front has a nice pass-through pocket, and in front of that there's this kind of bungee cord. So this you can add different random items. I don't have a ton of items sitting on my table, but you probably wouldn't put a knife here, but you can put something in front, tighten it down, and it'll hold it in place nicely. But it also helps with that back pass-through pocket. The item I have in there is pretty large, and so probably doesn't really need it, but it does keep it from moving around, and you can tighten it down as tight as you need. But what I have in there is this Grim Workshop lockpick and escape kit. This was from their recent Kickstarter. I'm not going to go through the contents of that since it's not what the video is about, but you can fit kind of a standard size Altoid tin. This one has a puzzle in it. It's hard to load this one out or load this one into there with the pouch full, but it does fit. It's just a little bit hard to get in there with the pouch full, and you can see this one's almost double the thickness of the one that I had in there, so it makes sense. You can also put random items in there. I couldn't think of anything else to put in there, and that fit well, so went with that. If you don't love this, you can remove it, or if you know you're not going to use it, just by untying it and then pulling this off, and then you can just unthread it. So you don't need to cut it. If you want to remove that, you can just unthread it. No loop panels or anything, so this front pocket section doesn't have any Velcro, which may be a deal breaker for some people, but probably not the biggest deal in the world. On the back, you have some Molle webbing, so you can attach this to other bags, or you can attach other stuff to this, as well as this really nice grab handle. And because this is a little bit large, it's not going to fit in really pockets. I guess in maybe cargo pockets. I don't really wear cargo pants, so in theory it would fit in cargo pockets, but for the most part this is going to be one that you throw in a bag, and if it's floating around in the bag, nice to have that grab handle to just pull it out, and you can also use it for carrying it around if you want to. One other thing on that grab handle, the bottom kind of extends out, and I'm not 100% sure what the purpose of this is, but you see this nice long section. I'm assuming, because a lot of the product photos have people wearing it on a belt, I'm assuming it's to do this, which you can reverse that and tuck it back into that Molle webbing. And in theory, it makes these kind of like belt loops, and just gravity is probably not going to pull those out of place. It'll sit on your belt. It's pretty easy to get it off though, just by kind of adding your finger to the bottom and applying the lightest amount of pressure. So not 100% sure, since I'm not carrying it that way, if that's the intended use case for it, but it seems like a plausible option, and there's definitely advertising a lot of people carrying it on their belt, so it definitely seems like it would make the most sense. But let me know if you know the specific purpose of those, and if I'm wrong especially. On the rest of the exterior, you have a reverse threaded YKK zippers. They're paracord pull, color matched to the pouch. I don't remember if this comes in other options, but yeah, color matched, and you can remove those, add beads, whatever you want there, just by snipping those off. Dimension wise on this, you're 5.98 inches wide, 3.94 inches tall, and about 1.73 inches in depth, and that's kind of their measurement. So obviously if you load this out super thick, it's going to be a little bit wider. I didn't load it out too thick, so it's pretty close to that, although with that tin in the front it gets a little bit thicker. Zippers are nice and smooth on it, and on the interior you have a ton of organization options. So I'll kind of go over what I have in it, as I always do, and then at the end of the video I'll take some measurements of the interior pockets if you're curious about it. But to start, on the left side, on these elastic loops, I have an O-Pen Mini. This is obviously the purple one. I tried to put a few Olight products in here, but obviously not everything's Olight. The County-Com Widgie pry bar, I believe this is a stainless steel one, 4-inch curved. Next to that, I have the Olight i5R EOS. This is a periwinkle one. I think this is a limited edition of 1,000. Really cool little light though. Just kind of like the color on that one mainly, but really cool light overall. Next to that, I have the Olife Rubato 3. Just did a video on this one. It's a little bit dirty since then. I've been carrying a lot lately, but really cool knife from them. First real O-knife that I've had. I have that medallion coin one. I think it was the Nightclaw, but the first kind of folder that I've gotten from them. And that's everything I have in the elastic panels. I have a dog hair there because I always do. There is this sewn in little keeper section. I think that's what the intended use for is, but there is a key keeper on the other side, so maybe not. And that's on both sides, that little loop of paracord. And then in the back, there's also one full-size pocket that's the full width and height of the pack itself. And in that, I just have another Grim Workshop item, the water purification card. Again, just kind of a random throw-in. You can put a lot of different stuff in here. What I really wanted to put in here was a login jotter or field note style notebook, but they don't actually fit in this pouch. So unfortunately I wasn't able to put that, but I did put a notebook on the opposite side, but pretty versatile back pocket there. One other note about this elastic loop, the one on this side goes the full width. There's some smaller ones in the front, but the back one goes the entire width. And it's also really loose. I haven't put anything in there, so it's not like I stretched it out, but it stretches out pretty far, and so you're gonna have to put something relatively large if you want to hold it in place. In fact, if I put that same tin from earlier, it just kind of free floats in there. It's not tight enough to hold that into place. So it's just something to keep in mind. You're gonna have to put something a little bit larger and thicker in there if you want it to hold in place. I did have the knife back there, but I was using the pocket clip to hold it in place. Flipping over to the other side, you can see the orientation changes. We have one vertical, one horizontal row of elastic. And so the orientation changes on the entire right side of the pouch. And so starting on the left is a Vital Carry bit driver. This is a bolt action one, kind of cool. It wants to open, so as soon as you push that over, you can see it kind of flies out and it stores a single bit in there, only the shorter ones. So if you put something too long, it will stick out. But you can push it over here to keep it in place, and then when you're done, you just pull it back and it tucks into there, held in by a magnet. So a really cool item from Vital Carry. I'll link to all of the items in the description below if I can find them, if they're still for sale. The one exception is probably going to be this one, which I guess I can link to, but it's not for sale, is the Victorinox Cadet. This is a G10 version from the Nut and Fancy project. This was limited, I think, to 1,000. If I remember correctly, maybe less than that. And so these are serialized on the blade and not necessarily available, but they came in blue and orange. I'll probably link to the regular Cadet in case you just want that model of Victorinox, but really like the G10 version. On the back here, I have a Zippo. This is just standard matte black, standard insert, so nothing crazy there, but put that in the back loop. Didn't utilize the front loops because it's pretty tight with that Zippo in there, so you don't have a lot of space to work with once you load that out. And then over here we have the key keeper, keychain organizer, whatever you want to call this, and I just have a Gear Aid glow fob. This is a blue one, obviously, and not tritium. It does need to be charged, but it glows really vibrantly, so that's cool. Tri-axis tweezers, these sit in this little keychain docking station, and you just squeeze them to pull them out. You can see there's a little nub holding them into place, and there's also a little pry end on the other side. These are titanium, available in a bunch of different anodization options, and again, we'll link to that as well. Cool little tweezers though. In that back pocket, the only thing I have is this Menosin A7 notebook. The A7 is just a standard size, so the Menosin's the notebook, but the A7 is available on other brands as well. I like this pack because you can get a 10-pack from on Amazon for relatively cheap, and so I'll pick these up every once in a while. They have a cool divider in the middle too, so nice little organization there for the lines, and they are perforated, so you can just tear them out once you're done with them. So if you're writing down an address or phone number and you want to give it to someone after, they are perforated without being too messy, which I like. So I like these notebooks a lot. But that's everything I have inside of the pouch. I'm going to throw these back in the back just to get them out of the way, and then if you wanted the measurements, I will measure everything out. If you don't care about them, feel free to skip this part of the video. But this back section, again, is the entire depth and width of the pouch, so it goes just a hair under 5 inches deep, but you can kind of overflow to the rest of the width of that pouch. The main loop back here, the larger one, is 3 7/8. No, not quite. Maybe 3 3/4 of an inch. These are about 2 inches, and then this one's going to be 1 inch in height. And again, this one's really loose, so just kind of free sitting, it's about an inch off of the back of the pouch. And again, that's not stretched, so it's something to keep in mind. These smaller ones are an inch tall and about 3/4 of an inch wide for the first two. The next one's about 1 1/8 inches, and I think this one was about the same. A little bit larger. This one's actually closer to 1 3/8 inches, so this one's a little bit wider than this one. Flipping over to this side, same heights, 2 inches and 1 inch. The back section's divided in thirds this time though, and these are pretty tight. So with like that Zippo in there, it was a pretty snug fit, even though the dimensions are more than wide enough. It's pretty snug comparatively. Each of these kind of third sections are about 1 3/4 inches or so. This one's closer to 1 7/8 inches, I guess. And this one also is almost 2 inches, about 1 7/8 inches. And so you're going to have the same thing here, about 1 3/4 inches on that front one, 7/8 of an inch or so on that one, 1 inch on this one, 7/8 of an inch there, and just a hair over an inch, maybe 1 1/8 inches on that one. So the back pockets, same thing. It's going to be the full depth. You're at 3 inches for the front, but you have a little bit of wiggle room if you want something a little bit taller in there. And the full width of the pouch, which on the interior is about 5.5 inches or so. So overall, a really, really great pouch. It's $20, so for that price, I think it's a steal. The only kind of downsides for me, no loop panel, which isn't a deal breaker for me, but for some people it definitely is. And then the only other downside is maybe that there's too much organization. It definitely encourages you to overload it. I tried to avoid that, but there's always just like these random spaces, and also you have to puzzle piece what you put. So like these ones that are about 7/8 of an inch are pretty tough to find items that fit in there. Obviously pens are an obvious choice, but otherwise there's not a lot of items that thin, so not a huge deal, but does get difficult if you want to really utilize the full use of the space, or finding something to fit back here is a little bit difficult. I could put like a battery backup, a really large one in there, something like that, but it's not super obvious. Sometimes there's pouches where it's super obvious what they wanted you to put in different pouches. This one really gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. But I think really cool pouch for $20. Definitely want to check out the medium if I can find it. But let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have the medium, how it compares. And as always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification button. All help the channel immensely. And I hope you have a great one. Take care.